This is a very strange thing, but divorce filings are big around Valentine's Day. In fact, they skyrocket. I was just looking at some statistics out of my old stomping grounds, the New York Post. I used to read that on the train. And one of the articles that I came across talked about the fact that divorce filings actually go up 40% this time of year, that they've collected all the data, and that's what they found. A couple of different divorce attorneys they quote in it, and we're very excited to have our own divorce attorney with us to explain this crazy phenomenon to us. Dennis Fuller, he's an attorney in Dallas, Texas. Dennis, thanks for coming on America Tonight.
Glad to be here with you tonight.
What is it about Valentine's Day and divorce? Is it just a nasty little last jab, or why do we see the filings go up?
I think there's two reasons. Number one is because we have a fall off in filings between Thanksgiving and Christmas, because Thanksgiving and Christmas are also focused on the positive things in our life. They're focused on, what we're grateful for in our families, and Valentine's Day kind of shifts the focus back to us personally, and particularly what we're getting out of that primary relationship in our lives.
Oof. And I mean, like I said, I can't imagine opening the door and getting those papers, or sometimes I guess you get them in the mail or whatnot. But so have you found that your phone rings? I mean, it's just like you just explained that, okay, we get through those holidays and now it's time to get serious, and now we're going to look at our relationship.
Yes, it actually starts about February the 1st as everyone starts shifting their focus to Valentine's Day coming up. And for some folks, they're in there early because they want to get out of the relationship they're in so they can be with the new Mr. or Mrs. Right that they found. In other cases, they didn't get what they wanted for Valentine's Day, like the golf shoes you were talking about. And they, within a week or two after divorce, they're in seeing the lawyer.
Yeah, there you go. So, divorce has no boundaries. I mean, it could be these gray divorces. We're seeing older people, or it could be somebody who's newly married. Is that right?
Absolutely. It kind of spans the spectrum of age. It's not confined to one area, that's for certain.
Is it more men or women? I've always been curious about this. Is it more men, Dennis, or women that are filing?
At Valentine's Day, we see like a 3-to-1 ratio, 3 times as many women filing at this time of year than men.
What does that say? It's like what you just said about examining relationships or somebody else or whatever it might be.
I think it has a lot to do with women's expectations surrounding Valentine's Day and the way their focus shifts.
Yeah. You sent me such an interesting piece that you did, and I was following along on it, and you talked about what happened to you. Do you remember the first girl that ever broke your heart?
I absolutely do. I was in the 7th grade, and I can tell you her name, and she broke up with me within a couple of days after Valentine's Day.
She did. That's terrible. And then, but now you're happily married, right?
I am. I'm happily married for 10 years now.
See, so there you go. So it worked out for you. But it was a Valentine's Day breakup. And you talked about in the piece that you sent me, and you've dealt with divorce for 30 years. You talk about, what it is. Is it faith and hope, or what is the deal? What do you really need? What do you really want? Are these the things that lead sometimes down the path of no return, or is it that we're not examining those issues enough?
Well, actually, I think the challenge is that at Valentine's Day, we do look at our relationships and we examine them carefully. And if we have faith that the person that we're with either is the person for us or could become the person that we want them to be, then we stay with them. But it's when we've lost that faith that they are the person. And sometimes, let me just tell you, it's amazing how Valentine's Day brings an end to the faith in relationships. When you find that receipt for something at the jewelry store that didn't make it home, or you find that receipt for something at Victoria's Secret that didn't make it into the bedroom, well, it's quite the shock. So if something has happened to cause us to lose faith in the relationship or the person that we have, And at the same time, we have lost also hope that they will become the person we want them to be. Then the next thing we know, people are abandoning ship and moving on to greener pastures.
When somebody comes in, somebody talks to you over the phone, maybe then they come in, do you go through, what do you do to make sure that this is the right course for them? Because I can tell by our conversation that you're successful at what you do, but you're a guy who's not going to take a bogus case.
Well, the first thing I do is I ask the client, what have we done to save this relationship? Because I think the biggest failure in relationships is not trying. So I want to know, how long have we been married? What are the challenges? Are they challenges that are dangerous for my client? Or are they challenges that someone's bailing out of too early and too easy? And sometimes I actually ask them to go back out the door and examine their reasons for leaving this relationship and give it the effort that it deserves and that they deserve.
Yeah, because the idea is you don't want somebody to make a mistake in divorce when it could have been saved.
I've got to tell you the story about a woman that came in my office. She was 68 years old, and she was telling me as I was working on her divorce, I had worked with her for months, and she said, the biggest mistake I made in my life, Dennis, was I divorced the father of my daughters. And she had divorced him 40 years ago. And she said, it was just difficult, and we didn't get along, and I just didn't think a marriage needed to be that difficult. And she said, I have never had it as good in the 40 years since.
Oh, that's depressing, Dennis. Oh, yeah, it's depressing because she realized it, but it was too late.
It was, and she had suffered for 40 years in other relationships, and I see it a lot of times. I see people divorcing 95%ers or coming in and at least talking to me about divorcing 95%ers, and I talk to them about that and let them know that the relationship and their family deserve the effort be put into saving the relationship, to resurrecting the relationship.
Yeah. You've done this, as I mentioned before, 30 years. Is this the most you've seen? I mean, is our culture, because I think our culture now, it's just, and you already touched on some of this, is like a throwaway culture. Boom, that's it. I'm tired of it. They're not going to do what I want them to do, so we're just going to have to move on. Do you think that you're seeing more divorces now than you ever have in the past decade or so?
Not only am I seeing more divorces, but I'm also seeing levels of entitlement in clients that are just staggering, quite honestly. And I don't know if in your area you have the billboards that we do here, but I see billboards everywhere telling myself and my clients what we deserve. You deserve this. You deserve the new car. You deserve the new house. You deserve the new furniture. And people have started to believe that they deserve for it to be easy in their relationships.
And then that's why you're seeing this happen, because we can't make that leap. And I don't know, I wonder if, and I think technology is great in so many senses, but I wonder if part of it is because have so much technology and things are moving so fast and we're so stressed and all those other excuses that we can make. But life is a lot different than it was, let's say, 30 years ago. And maybe that's an excuse, but I think that's part of the problem. Would you blame any of this on technology and, like you said, the expectations that we all have?
I can blame it on technology generally, but I can even blame it on technology specifically. I had a case this last year where a guy who was 50-odd years old had reconnected over the internet. A woman had been looking for him for 30-some-odd years. She was the love of his life in the summer of their 15th year in a little town in Texas, and they both moved back to the big cities after visiting their grandparents, and she found him on Facebook. And within a month of her finding him on Facebook, he was moving out. In fact, it was just about February. He was moving her down to Texas and moving his wife out.
Oh, man. There you go. That points out technology, no doubt about it. Dennis Fuller, divorce attorney, Dallas, Texas. Thanks so much for coming on, shedding some light. Great talking to you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
You too.